there's obviously been a bubbling undercurrent of people that have wanted two particularly loud left-wing voices banned, deplatformed. And up until very recently, I hadn't even considered it. Obviously, I've been somebody that has subscribed to sunlight is the best disinfectant. And if you ban Hasan Piker and Destiny, then somebody even more radical will just take their place. And history proves me right. And speaking of subscribing, wherever you're watching this, please remember to follow or subscribe down below. These videos are hard to break through the noise, and I would greatly appreciate it. But I know you might have to create an account, but seriously, it helps a ton. Now, I don't call for deplatforming. I don't think I ever really have. I don't think I've ever really considered it until this last week. And when you're talking about somebody like Hasan Piker or Destiny, it's not the words that they say that I don't like, that I think you could make an argument for their deplatforming. It's the laws that they break. You know, free speech is something that is important to me and should be defended. And you know me. I mean, if you follow me on X, I dunked on Pam Bondi in a ridiculous call for hate speech laws, okay? There's no such thing as hate speech. What there is telling your audience to take the lives of people they disagree with. What there is saying heinous stuff like, if you wanted Charlie Kirk to be alive today, then you shouldn't have voted for Donald Trump. These are, in some cases, direct, in other cases, veiled threats over political speech. And Twitch has been under immense pressure to ban Hasan Piker for about the last 8 months, mostly because of his rhetoric around Jewish people in Israel. Now, there's a whole nother group of people that are resurfacing all these calls to take the lives, slice them and dice them, take out senators, end the lives of landlords. These are just a few things that he said, and both him and, remember, Hasan Piker was a Destiny fan. He grew to more popularity, but these guys are two of the same. They are two poisonous peas in the same rotten pod, but they are both completely audience captured. They can only say more and more heinous things, more and more violent things to continue to grow. They don't have any other choice. And people ask, are you surprised? Or what is your take on them saying this crazy stuff? It's not surprise. It's not even discussed. I've been covering these two losers for a long time. Nothing they say really offends me or shocks me, but it is a genuine concern for both men. I am afraid for Destiny and Hasan Piker. They have no off-ramp. They can only espouse more and more violent rhetoric, more and more extreme views, and they have no off-ramp, because if they dial it back even a little bit, they'll lose their audience. All content creators suffer from this a little bit, right? I have people in my audience that will push back when I talk, when I push back against maybe a common idea. Like, there's a lot of conversation around Charlie Kirk and Israel, and there are people there that believe Israel did it. I think that's absurd, and there's no evidence whatsoever to prove that. And the only people that have tried to disprove me simply just say I'm wrong or that I need to look into it. And all I've ever asked for is a small piece of evidence. I've invited some of the biggest figureheads of this, group. Ian's welcome on my show. Nick is welcome on my show. They don't want to come. Nick's blocked me. So, if I come out and speak against that, there are portions of my audience that say, hey, you're cucked, we don't like you. But that's okay. Like, I'm open to being corrected. Hey, if you have evidence, feel free to give it to me. But I'm also willing to offend my audience because I have to say the truth about who I am. That's why I started that second channel. The Jeremy Hambley channel is far more uncensored. But when he says, if you wanted Charlie Kirk to be alive, Donald Trump shouldn't have been president for the second term. Destiny says in the show, conservatives should expect to die if they vote for their preferred candidate. In another stream, he said conservatives need to fear being killed. And the left's only response to this is, you guys started it. You guys need to turn the temperature down. I don't see any people on the right calling for, Hasan Piker's life, right? And if they are, I disavow it. But there are hundreds of thousands on the left that call for Charlie Kirk's, Andy Ngo's, Matt Walsh's. This is not uncommon on the left.
Cox has made it
behavior contingent on Donald Trump.
Insane right now.
Why do you think? No, let
behavior
me ask a question.
On Donald Trump?
Let me ask a question.
Because he's the president of the United States. Donald Trump can't go on TV and say all of us need to calm down.
Right.
Does he think the left? This is one of the biggest gaslighting things that the left does, right? Destiny's like, well, I'll disavow it if Donald Trump does. First of all, no, he won't. Second of all, he knows that the left doesn't listen to Donald Trump anyway.
Can you tell me why he cannot?
Why would you expect anybody, Destiny?
You can't answer that. Can you answer that question? Why can't Trump
go answer this question?
All of us should be less violent.
Why do you think
Trump say that?
Why do you think
your behavior contingent on Donald Trump?
Insane right now.
Why do you think? No, let me ask a question.
So when it doesn't matter. You have a huge audience, and because of the fact that you have a huge audience, you have a responsibility to not turn. No, it hasn't. It hasn't been broken. I actually care about the country and want to bring people together. You do the opposite. You represent the worst of us, Destiny.
Shout the crime statistics.
I mean,
not exactly like.
You need conservatives to be afraid of getting killed when they go to events so that they look to their leadership to turn down the temperature. The issue is right now, they don't.
But there aren't any leftists that are suffering this, right? So by Destiny's own logic I wildly disagree with, then leftists should be afraid for their lives, right? I don't agree with that. That's not how civilized society works. I was trying to find him saying this stuff about Kirk. I know he said it. I just don't know where the clip is here.
I do know the very reasonable sound. May not want to hear it, Destiny, but the reality is the investigators, according to the governor of Utah, have established that he was radicalized to a leftist ideology that drove him to murder Charlie Kirk. Now, let me just ask you.
That's just not true.
Let me just ask you.
There's no way to deal with it.
Okay.
It is true. Like, saying something is not true does not make it untrue. I could say that I'm not fat, but I don't magically stop being fat. This is like a child's rhetoric.
You're accusing the governor of lying. Yeah. That's your prerogative. But sure. If it turns out to have been somebody with a leftist ideology who wanted to shut up Charlie Kirk, would you condemn that?
I won't condemn anything until the president of the United States.
He won't do it anyway.
You won't condemn the murder of Charlie Kirk until Donald Trump says something.
I'm a YouTuber. Leftists and Democrats have been condemning and turning down the temperature, condemning violence, turning down the temperature.
No, they haven't been. You mean Hasan Piker saying, let the streets run with their blood?
For a decade.
No, they
Donald
haven't.
Trump can't go on TV and say, all of us need to calm down.
Right.
Can you tell me why he cannot?
Why would you expect anybody, Destiny?
You can't answer that. Can you answer that question? Why can't
Can
Trump
you
go
answer
on TV
this
and say,
question?
all of us should be less violent?
Why do you
can't
think
Trump say that?
Why do you think
your behavior contingent on Donald Trump?
Insane right now.
Why do you think? No, let me ask a
contingent
question.
on Donald Trump?
Let me ask a question.
Because he's the president of the United States of America and the leader of the opposing political party.
Destiny.
You have a huge audience of young men who listen to everything you have to say. So when it doesn't matter. You have a huge audience, and because of the fact that you have a huge audience, you have a responsibility to not turn. No, it hasn't. It hasn't been broken. I actually care about the country and want to bring people together. You do the opposite. You represent the worst of us, Destiny.
Shout the crime.
Well, apparently it's not in that clip, but he did say it. There's other clips of it. Of course, Destiny calls for conservatives to be afraid to lose their lives. Hasan saying, I don't care. People don't care. He conflated being upset about Charlie Kirk's murder to be the same as the Cracker Barrel drama. I mean, again, this is insane. And there are real calls now to have these guys permanently banned. I don't want them banned for saying things I don't like. But I think both individuals have a long history of calls to violence, which was not protected by the First Amendment. I think both individuals have a long history of radicalizing young men. And so I would not shed a tear if either one of them were banned. But I don't think, that would be a symbolic victory. Okay? They would just go to kick or whatever and keep streaming, first of all. Second of all, somebody younger, better looking would just take their place and spread even more aggressive rhetoric. We have tweets that have hundreds of thousands of likes on them, 200, 300, 400,000 likes, celebrating the death of a Christian man. This is not a small portion of society that needs fixing. This is millions of Americans who are so brain rot, who are so propagandized that there is actually no fixing them. I believe this. Jesus would tell me nobody's beyond saving. But I am not Jesus, and I've been to church one time in a row, okay? So I'm not as powerful in my belief as maybe someone who's been going to church for a long time, and hopefully that will change. But there are no saving a large portion of these people. If you think it's funny or hilarious, or you're going to go on and say he deserved it, I don't think that there's any changing that position, especially when you log on and you have those beliefs reinforced by Destiny and Hasan every day. You know? This is what Destiny has been about for years. This is why he was probably originally banned. You know? You know, when he called, here's Hasan telling hundreds of thousands of people, if they cared about fraud, they should go out and take the life of Rick Scott. He was banned for just 20 hours after saying this. The CEO of Twitch needs to be fired. Absolutely. Twitch needs to have more realistic penalties for this kind of stuff. Here's a video that came out in 2024. Here's 20 minutes of Destiny endorsing political violence. These people believe it. When they tell you what they say, they believe them. Now, there's this Matt Morse guy who's saying, hearing from a reliable inside source that Hasan Piker is about to get permanently suspended from Twitch. I don't believe that, especially when they follow up by saying, Jeff Bezos, please, this will be very embarrassing for me if nothing ends up happening. I don't believe a single inside source at Twitch has any intention of banning Hasan Piker. Their own CEO says he's his favorite content creator. You can't even criticize trans people on that platform, but you can call for Republicans to bleed out in the streets, as Hasan Piker has in numerous occasions. I'm not going to play the clips. You know they exist. You've seen them. Hasan Piker will not be banned, and even banning him won't solve this problem. Culture needs to solve this problem. There is a reason Hasan Piker is the second largest political streamer in the world. There is a reason that Destiny has an audience, and that's because there are people out there that identify with this stuff. Society needs to reject these people. They need to be lepers. They need to be saved by their friends and family, which some percent of them can be saved. We need to reduce the number of people that think it's okay to take the life of people you simply disagree with politically, on the left and the right. Now, I don't see many on the right, certainly not. I don't see anybody on the right wing with 50,000 live viewers saying we need to, go after, AOC and getting promotions, getting brand deals. This is a problem society needs to deal with. Sure, ban him. I don't care. I'm not going to shed a tear. I don't care. But I don't think he will be banned. I don't think Hasan Piker thinks he will ever be banned. The entirety of the mainstream media supports. Look at it. I type in Hasan Piker knew Charlie Kirk. Hasan Piker weighs in on horrible Kirk assassination. Opinion, I was supposed to debate Charlie Kirk. Every mainstream media supports this clown. Twitch won't ban him. I would be shocked if I will shave my beard if they ban this guy. That's how shocked I would be. But I'm shedding no tears because he is radicalizing America's youth every single day, making the problem far worse than we can possibly control. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe or follow down below, and we'll talk to you again real soon.